Hey everyone, so today I'm going to be reviewing Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson. This is the first book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen series, and let me just say I am so excited for this series, especially after reading this first entry, because I had heard a few things about Malazan before getting into it. One, that it was huge. I'd heard that Wheel of Time was comparable, but Malazan was bigger. And let me just say, because I recently finished Wheel of Time, it was huge. Don't get me wrong, Wheel of Time, biggest thing I'd read up to that point. But after reading this first Malazan book, I do not see how it could not be bigger than Wheel of Time. Like there's no debate. It's definitely bigger. That just seems to be my first takeaway, is that this is the biggest fantasy world that I have ever jumped into. Second takeaway is that there is a lot of moral grayness. That was the first thing that I'd really heard about the series. After reading Gardens of the Moon, I can confirm that there is some moral grayness, which I love. My favorite series is A Song of Ice and Fire, and that one of the best things about that is not all the time you can tell who the good guys are, who the bad guys are. Malazan has that in, I would say, to a greater extent, which I enjoy. And so before I kind of jump into my review, I will say this will be a spoiler-free review entirely. I had a bit of a debate on how I wanted to do reviews for Malazan, because when I was doing my reviews for Wheel of Time, I was like, I would do it half and half, but once I would do spoiler-free and then spoiler-filled for the second half. But once I got into books 4, 5, 6, I was like, how many people are clicking on a review, a spoiler-free review for book 6 in the series? It just didn't make a lot of sense to me. And so how I decided to do this is I'm going to do the first review is going to be spoiler-free entirely, and then my reviews for all of the books following are going to be entirely spoiler-filled. That just it seems to be the way that makes the most sense to do these reviews. And so this will be spoiler-free. My first kind of takeaway is, because I do have a few criticisms, and I want to get them out of the way, and I do think that I don't want that to overshadow my larger, what I think is a lot of praise for what Gardens of the Moon accomplished. So my first kind of criticism is I didn't feel super attached to the characters, and I think largely that was because of Steven Erikson's writing style. I feel like there was a lot that mystery, I think, took kind of the forefront instead of being super in the characters' heads. And now this is third person limited, so we were in characters' heads, but I just didn't really feel like I was in their head. I just didn't I felt this, there was this wall between me and some of the characters, and I didn't really enjoy that, just because I really like reading about, I really like feeling connected to characters. I really like dynamic characters, and there were dynamic characters. I just didn't feel as connected to them as I would like to. The second thing, this is super minor criticism. Some of the names, I wish it's hard. Naming is hard. I will be the first person to admit it. Naming is probably one of the hardest things if you're writing a story. But some of the names kind of take me out of it a little bit. Whiskey Jack, that takes me out of it a little bit. I don't know why. There's just some of the names I'm just not the biggest fans of. Other names, Animanda Rake, that's a cool name. That is a really cool name. And so anyway, like I said, minor criticism on that one. Other one, this is not a criticism, but this is just for me personally. Gosh, was I confused. I was so confused. I was rereading, and it was just I still feel like there are so many things that went over my head, and I think that was intentional. And I actually really applaud Steven Erikson for doing this, because I'm sure that there were a lot of people who said, you can't write a story like this where you don't hold you can't write about a world this big and not hold the reader's hand along the way. He said, no, I'm just going to throw them right into the middle of it, and I'm going to explain very little, and they are going to learn. Erikson was the master of show not tell in this regard. He showed us everything, and he told us very little, and that is honestly probably when I'm on my reread of Malazan, because I'm sure that I'm committed that I'm going to read the series, and just judging from this first book, I'm sure that I will reread it at some point, and I think that I am going to get a lot more about this book than I did the first time, just because I feel like a lot went over my head. But regardless, I do think that is something that people should take into account if they're going to be picking up this series. Prepare to be confused. It's okay though. It's still enjoyable. Don't get me wrong. You will be confused, but you will get enough where you can still obviously you're not entirely confused. But it's a lot of names. It's a big world, and so yeah, prepare to be a little confused. My first real praise for this is I thoroughly enjoyed the epic scope of this series, and it just I mean that seems kind of assumed given everything I've said so far, but I mean just the lore and the excerpts that the chapters would start with. I thoroughly enjoy that, and talk about immersion. I feel like I was jumping into an entirely new world. And also, this is a minor thing. I found the gender dynamics in the story to be pretty interesting. I like the fact that it's not really a thing. Honestly, there's not really this. I feel like there's not a lot of series that do that, and I actually really appreciated the fact that it's just the men and women characters. That's not really a point at any part of the story, and I think that that's something that a lot of people would find a pro in. So I feel like that's worth mentioning. But yeah, the epic scope of this series. I mean, yeah, it's big and it's exciting. And my other big kind of praise that I want to leap on the series is the grayness. and there were some characters that I never felt like I was directly supposed to like or not like a character. I feel like this is just who they were. There are sides in this story, and some characters are on the side and they have motivations, just like in the real world. There's, some people do some bad things, some people do some good things, and it's gray. It is a very gray story, and I love that, and I'm so excited. Now I have heard, like I said, because I know that there's 10 books in the main series, and that there's like 20 if you count like all the spin-offs and everything. I don't know exactly what the spin-offs entail because I've tried to avoid things, but I do know that the second book drops you off in an entirely another part of the like world, and you like learn about entirely different people. And so that's gonna be something. I am prepared for that. But overall, I would just have to say Gardens of the Moon was a fantastic story. I really, really enjoyed it. I recommend it to. It's not for everybody. There are some people, if you don't like big stories with lots of names that are hard to remember, like my dad personally, like he does not like a story where like there's like a bunch of names, because he has a really hard time remembering names of the stories, like with plot and everything, like with all everything else, he remembers all of it, but with names, he said for some reason names, they just have a really hard time sticking with him. I don't know if you'd enjoy Malazan, because there's a lot of names of a lot of things, and so I don't think that this story is for everybody. But I do think if you're looking for an epic story, this might be the most epic story that I've ever come across. And I'm very excited to go deeper into it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If I got anything wrong, or if I don't see how I could get anything wrong, but if I did get something wrong, please let me know. If you disagree with anything I said, please let me know. If you enjoyed the review, make sure to like and subscribe, and have a great day.